tell you, how do you follow that? How do you follow 3 minutes of beautiful melodies? Thank you for that. And I think, first of all, I apologize for my raspy voice. It's coming back slowly. It's almost here, but not quite yet. So if I get softer as the time goes, please pardon me. And I think, again, a wonderful memorial as we move forward. And I would certainly encourage all of you to take advantage of our 3-minute periods of time. And I think we've made a commitment that even if we have to add additional sections of time, that anybody that would like to use that time may do so. As Reverend Barrick said, we are back talking about fruits of the Spirit, gifts of the Spirit. And my sermon this morning is entitled Connecting. But first, some interesting facts that you may not know about how we live our lives. We will spend, during our lifetime, we'll spend about 2.5 years cooking and 1.5 years cleaning. Does that sound about right for everybody? Moms are saying it's more like 5 years of cleaning. 4.5 years driving a car, and about 4 months of that time stuck in traffic. We'll spend, of an average life cycle, 25 years of life sleeping. If you're lucky, right? It seems like we give us 10. You'll spend 10.5 years of your life working. And 5 years of that will be at a desk, and about 2 years of that 10 years will be in meetings. And you'll spend a whopping, this is on average, 9.5 years watching television. 9.5 years watching television. Almost as much time watching television as working. Not true for everybody. True for many Americans. Along the way, you'll laugh approximately 290,000 times. You'll walk 110,000 miles. And you'll drink, if you're like me, about 12,000 cups of coffee. And dream about 140,000 dreams. For more than a century, this distribution of time has held rather stable, even as we have moved from starting staring at fires, to reading books, to watching television, and finally chatting on Facebook. Do we have any Facebook people? I don't have Facebook, I'm sorry. Throughout this time, we've shared the labors and joys of life as we've worked to maintain and improve our world. Recently, though, starting in the mid-'80s and continuing in today, how we work and work within community has shifted, in many cases quite dramatically. Pumping our own gas, assembling our own furniture, preparing our own taxes, utilizing the self-check lines at Meijer and Walmart, booking our own travel. In years past, other people used to do this work for pay, but now we do it for ourselves for free. Does anybody remember having someone pump their gas for them? I think I was about 5 years old when the very last station in Lowell closed. Very unusual thing, very wonderful thing though. Craig Lambert has written a fascinating book called Shadow Work, the unpaid, unseen jobs that fill our day. Clearly these efforts, this shadow work, take time, lots of time. The shadow work that we now do, all the things that we used to have somebody else do, or somebody would help us with, that we now sort of do on our own. That takes up time in our lives. Shadow work also includes new duties at our offices, which are constantly being downsized. At home, we go to the internet for guidance on our medical problems, and we spend countless hours coordinating our kids' extracurricular activities. Over the past 2 decades, as technology has taken off, new tasks have been crammed into our already filled lives. Anybody ever feel like that? Every day there's something new to add to our schedule, something new to do. Sure, some might say that this do-it-yourself approach is empowering, but Lambert urges us to look at the consequences of all this shadow work or self-service. Shadow work not just makes us busier, but more exhausted and isolated. Ann Holbert, who reviewed his book, says, "We are interacting more with our screens than with other humans, and we are doing it at unreasonable hours." You don't have to share this mounting alarm or his nostalgia for gas pump jockeys to avail yourself of this very useful lens. Before you can hope to rebalance your time, you'd better first understand how you actually spend it. How are you actually spending your time? A lot of your time, if you look at it, may have been or may be devoted to this shadow work. Elizabeth Saunders has written an article in Harvard Business Review with the title, "Are You Proud of How You're Spending Your Time?" She urges us to stop doing what seems to be most urgent and start intentionally investing in what's important. There's a difference between what is most urgent and what is most important. Answering that email, for example, is really not as important as attending your child's soccer game. Saunders encourages us to prioritize family and friends, be sure to take vacation, stay healthy, and finally know ourselves. He says, "In my experience, it's so easy to lose track of who you are, what you enjoy, where you are in life, and where you're going, unless you're purposely and intentionally taking time to reflect." The Apostle Paul has the very same concern, which is why he writes to the Christians in Corinth about the gifts of the Spirit. He wants them to be proud of how they are spending their time and to make sure they are focusing on spirit work, not shadow work. One of the dangers of shadow work is that it distracts us from spirit work. Paul says, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak." Amazing, isn't it? How the truth of the Bible can leap the centuries and speak to us exactly where we are now. We are still enticed and led astray. Maybe not by Roman idols, but by emails, text messages, phone apps, reality television, social media, and of course the internet. Like the Christians of Corinth, we focus more on what is urgent than what is important. Now there are a variety of gifts, says Paul, but the same Spirit, and there are a variety of services, but the same Lord. And there are a variety of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. Notice that Paul is not saying that spirit work is limited to a single gift, service, or activity. No, there are a variety of gifts, services, and activities. What unites this distinctive kind of work is that it all comes to us from the same divine source. What source of that? To each of us is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. Spirit work comes from one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and it serves the common good. When we grasp this, we move from shadow work to spirit work. So what does this work look like? Paul says that to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. New Testament scholar C.K. Barrett suggests that the utterance of wisdom might deal with ethical matters, while the utterance of knowledge includes theological matters. Ethics talks about what we should do, while theology talks about who or what we should believe. Both doing and believing are important work, and both serve the common good. Johnny Cash picked up on this important balance when he warned people not to be so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. So heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. Ethical actions need to support our theological beliefs. Otherwise, people will rightly accuse us of being hypocrites. We cannot just say we love our neighbors, we must actually perform acts of love. We cannot simply believe in forgiveness, we must forgive those who hurt us. We cannot talk about justice, we have to do justice in our lives. Tom Schultz, the founder of Group Publishing, has been wondering why people don't want to go to church anymore. We've been wondering that for a while. Why don't people want to go to church anymore? Instead of just reading about the topic, he staked out a spot in the city park, and he asked people why they weren't in church. Like he was out there this morning. One of the top responses he got was, "They're a bunch of hypocrites." Clearly, no one wants to go to a church where people say one thing and do another. But Schultz dug deeper and discovered there was more to this response. He says, what bothers them is the sense that church people act like they all have the answers, that they've arrived, that they're only interested in telling others what to do. People are not impressed by the utterance of knowledge, theological insights that support Christian faith. In fact, they're turned off by church leaders who act like all they have the answers and try to tell others what to do. If we're going to attract people to church, we need to act in ethical ways and support what the Apostle Paul calls the utterance of wisdom. That's real, solid, down-to-earth wisdom. Such wisdom is grounded in concrete actions that give people an experience of the love of God. Fact is, most people don't experience God in church, according to Tom Schultz. They're not looking for deep theological trivia that seems to interest some preachers. They crave something very simple. They're dying to be reassured that God is real. They're dying to be reassured that God is real. That he is more than a historical figure, that he is present today, and that he is active in the lives of people around them. That God is with us. The gospel message that God is for us, and God is with us. Spirit work assures people that God is real. Through simple actions, it shows people that God is present in the lives of members of the Christian community. Within the church, some are given gifts of healing by the one Spirit, says Paul. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, discernment of spirits. To another, various kinds of tongues. To another, the interpretation of tongues. This list describes a variety of skill sets or gifts that are in the believer's toolbox. The skills range from healing to the interpretation of spiritual languages. The point is not that any one of these gifts is superior to the others, but that all these are activated by the one and same Spirit, says Paul, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. Sometimes the scale of these gifts is very small. The New York Times columnist David Brooks recently asked his readers to describe their purpose in life and how they found it. One of them, Kim, wrote, this is her purpose in life. My purpose is simply to be the person who can pick up the phone and give you 30 minutes in your time of crisis. I can listen to you complain about your coworker. I can look you in the eye and give you a few dollars in the parking lot. I can help keep you afloat with a little boost. That's spirit work. What would fit under Paul's categories of healing, discernment of spirits, maybe even the working of miracles? It serves the common good and builds up the Christian community. Friends, our challenge is to clear away our shadow work so that the gifts of the Spirit can be put to use. We can begin by turning off our screens for a while and turning to each other. It's only when we look to each other in the eye and engage in real conversation that we can show each other the love of God. This might not seem to be the most urgent of work, but is usually the most important. As we enter into these final months of Olive Branch's visible ministry, there'll be a great temptation to lose ourselves in shadow work. There will be meetings to attend, boxes to pack, classrooms to clear out, meals to cook, and services to plan. Indeed, we'll often find ourselves very busy. But as we move through this complex and busy time, let's do our very best to remember what our primary work as the church is: to share the gospel of Christ with one another and the world. Let's be sure to spend time together in fellowship as we will today, enjoy worship as we are today, study the Bible as we did this morning, and share the gospel message with one another as hopefully as we do every day. This very afternoon, immediately following service, we'll have the first of a monthly potluck offered as an opportunity for fellowship and renewal. I hope you'll consider joining us for this special and meaningful time of spirit work. The good news about spirit work is that it energizes and connects us to one another. Instead of feeling exhaustion and isolation, we begin to experience inspiration, community, and unity. We discover the truth of what Paul says to the Corinthians. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. Energy, connection, inspiration, community, unity, these are the benefits of replacing shadow work with spirit work. So let's continue to move from shadow to spirit, replacing the earthly with the heavenly and the urgent with the important. When we do this, we'll find ourselves closer to God, closer to Jesus, closer to each other, and better able to serve the common good. And friends, that will be time well spent.